All right. So, welcome to the Greater Good. It's a really fun show that I get to do a couple of times a month. And I try and bring in interesting people whenever possible. There are actually a lot of interesting people out there. The world's full of them. You just have to be able to find them and then kind of guide them in the right direction. But this show is really about people that, in my estimation, are significant in our community, San Diego County and surrounding areas. There are a lot of people that are very generous with their money and energy and whatnot. But then there are people that actually get the job done. Boots on the ground kind of individuals. And today, I am just really excited to have Deacon Jim Vargas from Father Joe's Village with me. Hi, Deacon. How are you today?
I'm fine, Jeff. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Again, I know.
Again,
So
yes.
I couldn't resist. So this is a do-over for Deacon Vargas and me. We did this show a few weeks ago, and the audio was so bad we decided we wanted to redo it because neither one of us can remember what we talked about. But we, we,
It was good though. Whatever it was good.
it was great. Yeah, when people ask you, I used to own a winery up until a couple of years ago, and people would say, "What's the best vintage year you ever produced?" And I'd say, "The one that we just put in the barrel." You know, it's all about what's current. Anyway, it's great to see you again, Deacon Vargas, and happy holidays. This is a busy time for you, I'm sure, at Father Joe's.
It is. It's a busy time. It's a fun time too, and especially for the kids. As we know, we try to normalize this season for them as much as possible. They don't live in very typical situations, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So in the Christmas season, it's about the kids, and so we make sure that Santa visits, and we make sure that we have Christmas parties for them, and that they have gifts. We have a great group, by the way, the Ladies Guild, and they were formed very early on about 35 years ago, actually, when
Mhm.
Father Joe first started, and he was very bright to bring together this committed group of women who are just dynamos.
Yeah.
Some of whom are still on the in the guild, by the way, believe it or not. Some of the first ones,
Wow.
and they've added new members throughout the years, of course. And they are a force. And I mention them because just recently they they took the mothers actually of these kids who reside with us. They took them to Walmart, and
Mm.
Walmart opened up the doors about an hour and a half, 2 hours earlier than usual.
Yeah.
And the Ladies Guild had raised funds throughout the year in order to be able to allot $75 per child. And they then were able to shop with the parents, and the parents picked out what they needed for the children. And it was just a great bonding experience between the Ladies Guild members and these mothers who are at the village, and fathers also. Some of them were fathers who went out with these Ladies Guild members, and they
Yeah.
shopped. Now the gifts have all been wrapped, and they're going to be opened by these children on Christmas morn. And
How
and and, and
exciting.
just to see the delight and the glee in their eyes, and the smiles on their faces, just makes it all right.
That's the best. Absolutely. Yeah. We at the San Diego Harbor Police Foundation, that I'm the president and CEO of, we adopted Perkins K-8 school 3 years ago. I'm not sure if you remember that. And
Sure.
that school is, kind of shouts the dilemma that we're faced with in so many places throughout the county, where we have underprivileged children attending elementary K, or K through 8 school, where at Perkins in particular, they have almost a 40% homelessness ratio. And I'm almost certain that some of those children are part of your community. And we have a program throughout the county called Shop with a Cop. Have you ever heard of that program?
I have actually, yes.
Yeah. So we just had that about a week and a half ago. But my foundation, we allocated more funds than was needed, than what was needed for that program. So with the help of IQ Podcast, our producers for this show, Sarah Morga and Brett Davis and Attorney King, we're going to do a pizza party on Friday for all the students at Perkins,
That's
which is
great.
their last day of school. I mean,
That's
some of the kids uh, we, some of the kids already had their kind of a Christmas event with Shop with a Cop, but we had this extra money and the generosity of King Amanpour. We're gonna feed 300 or I'm sorry, 423 students plus staff and teachers uh, pizza. So,
Wow.
and
Nice.
we'll have Santa there as well. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, put your hand on your ears, little kids. Santa is actually one of the teachers at school, Mr. Harper. He's a really marvelous Santa. Anyway, so that's great. So I have on my board, I have Cristiano Aman, who you know very well,
I
and his
do.
wife Adriana. And Cristiano was telling me at our board meeting just last Friday that you have had, I think he said, 4 people in your St. Margaret of Cortuna program so far. Is that right?
St. Margaret of Crotona Harbor. That's correct. And it's a program actually that just came into existence earlier this year due to
Right.
the generosity of Adriana and Cristiano. They really have a love for our mission. They came in the
Yeah.
tour a number of years ago and have stayed close to us, and I'm very appreciative of that. And then earlier this year, they wanted to fund a program that would focus on young women who are on the streets and either have a child or not, but are pregnant. And
Mhm.
so, and pregnant, and sometimes they're just like I said on the street and at their wits' end because it's hard enough to be on the streets. It's even harder to be pregnant and on the streets, and
Oh my
especially
goodness.
if you have another child with you as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
So, as a result of their generosity, we were able to open up a program basically, and we have a number of rooms that we've dedicated to these women who we've been helping off the streets who are pregnant. And again, as I mentioned, some of them have children, and some of them are just pregnant for the first time, and they're coming in, and we're caring for them through our Therapeutic Childcare Center. And our
Mhm.
Therapeutic Childcare Center is one that works with kids of all ages, from infancy all the way up to age 18, actually,
Mm.
and in existence many years. There's this preschool program that's associated with it, and the kids who come to us typically are delayed in some fashion, academically, emotionally, or socially, sometimes
Mhm.
all three. And so these are the professionals there, the social workers, the teachers, the psychologists, work with them in order
Right.
to help them to come up to their peer level, so that they can compete well in school and
Mhm.
not be the future dropouts and the future adults on the streets. And that's the whole purpose, right? To mitigate their circumstances so that they can succeed. And we work with the parents as well. A lot of these parents haven't had good role models and
Yeah.
don't
Right.
parent very well. And so we help them with that, and so that they can build familial bonds, which is an important element as well. So this new program, St. Margaret of Crotona Harbor, the parents can take advantage of what we have for them at the Therapeutic Childcare Center. And of course, we have a federally qualified health center, and that's affiliated
Mm.
with our
Yeah.
organization. And so, any health issues that they have, I mean, prenatal issues, and then leading on to birth and so forth, the doctors there can care for them, which is a great benefit as well. And then again, the care of the staff and just the compassion and being there for them. So the women who are with us are just ecstatic to be there and not to be on the streets.
That's fantastic. One of my other board members is Dr. Sean Daneshmand, and Dr. D is the chief medical officer at Scripps for all of their neonatal programs throughout the county. And he was out visiting a clinic the other day, and he came upon this woman who was pregnant and homeless, and he called me up and he said, I think I remember something you mentioned about a program that might be able to help this woman. And so I'm not sure if she's one of the 3 or 4 that you've got, but it's possible that it was from Dr. D's referral, because I gave him, all of the information for the program. And yeah, it's extraordinary what um, what a family, a couple, the Aman family can do in such a meaningful way. And at some level, it's wonderful to donate to United Way and other big organizations, Red Cross. They do good work. But if somebody sends money to Father Joe's or St. Margaret of Cortona Harbor program, I know for a fact that a super majority of all that money is going to go directly to that program. And that's a remarkable statistic. In the nonprofit world, people that evaluate nonprofits, that's one of the first things they do is they look at, of every dollar, how much of it goes to programs. And I know you've done a remarkable job of getting that number as low as possible. So
That's correct, Jeff, and that's an important element as you mentioned, because anyone who's donating wants to make sure that they're donating for the actual services that are making a difference in the lives of those who we're blessed to serve. So that's an important element. We need to be good stewards of the funds that we receive, whether those funds are public funds from county, city, state, federal, or private funds, philanthropic dollars from foundations and grants and so forth. So that's an important element. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and the only way that really happens is with good stewardship. Like you said, it has to come top down in terms of not just the mission, but the way the mission is managed. And, your Father Joe's Villages, all of your programs are so well received. In fact, I heard, I'm not sure, maybe it was from Father Joe himself, or from you, but I heard that you're one of the largest providers of these kinds of services in Southern California. Is that accurate?
We are the largest homeless services provider, by virtue of the breadth and the depth of our services. We have in the county of San Diego, we have the largest number of shelter beds. Let's say we just start with shelters, getting people off the streets in the immediacy so we can start working with them, making sure they're in a safe environment, a secure environment, making sure that they have the basics, that they have a meal. I mean, that's just basic. You can't do anything if you're hungry, if you're malnourished, right? And there's a lot of malnourishment out there within the San Diego community. We talked about the kids before. 2 in 5 children have some level of nutrition deprivation in San Diego, and 1 out of 3 adults do as well. Those are big numbers, and they've grown throughout the pandemic months and almost a couple of years now, which is why we typically serve a lot of meals each and every single day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, to our residents and also to the community, those who are on the streets who come in to dine with us at lunch as well. And so, we typically serve over 1 million meals a year. And these pandemic months, we've been really serving even more and going out into the community, different areas where we've heard there's been food deprivation there and insecurity. And so that's an important element, right? So that we get people nourished, and then we're able to help them with all the other things, right? So when we talk about being the largest homeless services provider, it's the fact that we are able to serve as many as we are. There's 1,200 beds that we have just for shelters. Those are just shelters.
That's remarkable.
And at any given night, we provide some level of housing, not only shelter, but also we also develop housing, affordable housing, and permanent supportive housing, and we can talk about that as well. More specifically, if you like, but all in all, we serve almost 3,000 in total on any given night. So it's the comprehensive services that go along with that. As I mentioned mentioned as basic as a meal, or the Therapeutic Childcare Center, which is helpful for the children and the parents. There's the health center, as I mentioned, and everything that's involved within the health center, in addition to the regular specialties, or the regular medicine, I should say. We have behavioral health specialists there that work with those who are mired in mental health issues and challenges, and then also substance use. We have a substance use disorder treatment center as well, which works with those individuals who are again addicted to different types of drugs or alcohol, and we especially help them to address those and wean them off those substances. And that's not an easy thing to do, obviously. There's a dental clinic as well, and that works on restoring the teeth of individuals who typically have lost their teeth because of malnutrition, and primarily restored
and crystal meth and other things, right?
So it's all these services that really come together to holistically help an individual in all areas of their challenges, basically, in order to break that cycle of homelessness.
Producer Sarah just fixed our fuzziness issue. She's quite quite
Okay.
quite quite the genius over here. While you and I are waxing on, she's hard at work trying to make you and I look handsome. But
Well, I don't know.
I don't know how
You're,
that's going to
you're handsome yourself. I don't know. It's a challenging job as it relates to me, but okay. I applaud
So
Sarah. You can do that.
she's the best. So, I always tell any of my guests that I don't want to ask the really hard questions. I just want to have more of a conversation. But I think I'm almost forced to ask a hard question that I'm not sure anyone has the answer to. And what is the solution, uh, Jim, for this homelessness issue that is just endemic throughout the world? I mean, it's everywhere. It's not just San Diego County. I was just recently in New York City and in Washington, D.C. on business, and it was just sad. It's just there's no other word to describe it. And I mean, I get that some people choose that life, and that's fine, but that's a minority for sure. So, I mean, I know what you're doing is astounding, but what's the long game?
Okay, I'm asked that question a lot, as you can imagine. So because people they want to know, well, what is the solution? How can we get to the end point, in a sense, right? Just to put it in perspective, and it's in keeping with what you just mentioned. In the United States, we have over 550,000 individuals who are homeless and on
Hmm,
the streets or in shelters, and so that's almost a million, well, half a million, over
right.
half a million, say, individuals, and they are across the United States. New York, you mentioned New York. New York has the highest homeless population in the U.S., and that's not surprising. It's a big metropolis, and then it's followed by Los Angeles, also not surprising. That's also quite big. What surprises people is that the third largest is Seattle, and Seattle
Mhm.
have a severe homeless problem. It drops precipitously. The numbers in New York are quite large, as are the numbers in LA. Then it drops precipitously to say Seattle, and then comes down. The fourth is San Jose, and we're almost neck and neck with San Jose. We have the fifth largest homeless population here in San Diego County. We have little over 7,600 right now, the last count, and about half of those are unsheltered, basically. So
Mm,
that's kind of to put it in perspective. The So solutions. Talking about solutions, right?
yeah,
Uh, it's not as if, Jeff, we should be pointing to a point in time, I should say, where there's absolutely not one homeless individual on the street. All right, that's not the
mhm,
mark of success, I think.
right,
The mark of success is having a robust enough system, homeless services system, and it's not just Father Joe's Villages. Obviously, we're part of the
right,
ecosystem in a sense, but it's having enough of a robust enough system whereby we do a few things. Number one, we try to keep people from becoming homeless. Right, so
right,
preventing homelessness is extremely important. We know that that's where you could be especially successful. Once a person has fallen onto the streets, and especially if they've been on the streets chronically for a long period of time, it becomes even more difficult
sure,
for them to then help them off the streets, right, for various reasons. And so preventing homelessness very much needs to be a part of that system, so that when someone is at risk of maybe losing an apartment because they're behind in rent, maybe being able to help them to get back on their feet, because maybe they've lost a job, right? And so instead of falling onto the streets, we'll help them with the rent for a period of time, and then in addition to helping them find a job so they can get back on their feet and start paying rent again. So that's just as an example of what could be part
right,
of that
right,
system. And then once an individual has fallen onto the streets, then it's really again trying to get them off the streets as quickly as possible. So having a comprehensive programs in place that are able to work with the individual holistically, so that if a person has health issues, that those health issues are addressed. Keeping in mind that if someone's on the street and you're attempting to help them on the health side, but they have housing insecurity, well, you're just going to be just so successful, right? Housing is extremely important, right?
Right.
So we're blessed in that regard because we not only, like as I mentioned, we not only have a health center, but it is part and parcel of the bigger campus in a sense, that includes housing, includes shelter, includes
Mhm.
affordable
Right.
housing. So they work. Both all these areas work in concert with one another in order to be able to then truly address the challenges that an individual has as a whole. So I guess without going on and on, I guess my bottom line message is that we as a community have to make sure that we are addressing the mental health issues. Almost 50% of those who are on the streets have some level of mental health challenges, right? Some
Right.
of them have substance use disorder issues. That's quite a high percentage as well. Some of them have both. I mean, we need to and that's not an easy one, right? By the way, to
Yeah.
getting people or convincing them that they need to address their mental health and that they need to be consistent with that. Taking medication as an example,
Mm.
seeing therapists. That's easier said than done, and so it's being able to work with these individuals and being not only being compassionate but being consistent.
Right.
Um, we have, by the way, Jeff. We have a street health program which we instituted just pre-COVID, the year before COVID, 2019, and it
Mhm.
was to meet people on the streets who would not access medicine in a
Right.
traditional way in brick and mortar,
Right.
right? And we were finding it hugely successful, being able to be out there binding wounds, getting people to hospitals who really
Yeah.
needed to be in hospitals, otherwise they were going to die on the streets, basically.
Yeah.
Being able to address their blood pressure situations, as an example, and
Sure.
so that was the start of our street health. It was the first time it was being done actually in the city of San Diego. We were happy to do it, and now we're expanding that program to 5 days a week instead of just a couple of days a week, and we're also adding psychiatry. So we're
Oh,
going
that's
to
wonderful.
the
Yeah.
array of individuals who are going out there. We're going to have psychiatric nurse practitioners, as an example,
Mhm.
go out as well. So I'm really excited about that because of what we're seeing on the streets, right? We need to reach these individuals where they are, and
Yeah.
then over time, after building relationship, be able
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
bring them in, right? So that
Mhm.
they could really be helped. So I don't know. It's a long way of answering your question.
No,
Um,
it's okay. We have
it's very challenging. It's not a one size fits all solution. It's just across the board. There's a lot that needs to be addressed.
you use the word holistic, which is one of my favorite, um, terms in explaining what it is and why, we do things like we do at the San Diego Harbor Police Foundation. When Chief Stainbrook and I agreed to create this foundation 3 years ago, we kicked the program off with a thing called Fish with a Cop, and we
Mm,
took, s 7th and 8th graders out on, an ocean fishing vessel. We had 27 kids with 27 cops, police officers, no badges, no guns, and they went out ocean fishing for the first time in their lives. And for every single child on that boat, they had never been on the water, period, and
wow.
yet they lived 2, 3 blocks away from it. Anyway, it was a great event. Kids had a wonderful time. They started bonding with the officers. They caught 110 fish. Everybody was smiling, a lot of, well, food and just frivolity, and it was just a wonderful event. But at the end of the day, I looked over at Chief Stainbrook and I said, "So what? It's just a memory.
Mhm,
It's a rocking chair memory. Yeah, they had a good time, but what are we really doing to impact and influence these children in a way that's gonna be meaningful for their future?" And that's when I said the holistic word, and I haven't stopped saying it, is that we need to treat everything that's occurring at Perkins because that's symptomatic of what's wrong in so many other places. And so that's, so we have a reading comprehension program. We have a career pathways program. We have an enrichment program for parents. We address food insecurity, and plus we like to have a lot of fun along the way. And we have 9 officers that volunteer and that they adopt a grade level. So say Officer Wielden, who's kind of the lead for that program, he might be in the 3rd grade, but then he'll follow the 3rd graders to the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to not only, just because he loves the kids, but then, they really start to bond with those officers. So, what you do and what we're doing at San Diego Harbor Police Foundation is very similar. Of course, yours is a much, much larger scale. I mean, we're just addressing this one K through 8 school with the hopes that by following our lead, other community-based organizations, or perhaps us as we grow, will be able to do that with multiple schools. So,
Right.
yeah.
That's
So what?
I applaud you for that. I think and it's foundational at that level, especially you mentioned from K through 8. That's foundational. What you're doing, no doubt, is changing lives there, and by not only the lives of the students, but by extension, then as they have their own families, right?
Right.
So it's exponential. So I applaud you for what you do, and building relationship is what it's all about. I
Yeah.
mean, when you're able to, whether they're children or those with whom we work, adults, let's say as an example, in our facilities, in our shelters, it's building relationship. It's getting them to trust you.
Right.
These are
Right.
individuals that have been disappointed and have been let down many times throughout their lives. Sometimes they're victims of domestic abuse.
Yep.
I mean, there's so many challenges that they face, so many psychological challenges because of experiences that they've had, right? And we're not here to judge anyone. We're here just to say, hey, you know what? There is hope.
Yeah.
Instilling hope is extremely important, Jeff. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of these people come to us and they've lost all hope,
Yeah.
and we
Sure.
we we work with them to instill hope and tap into their potential. We provide the resources, of course we do. We provide
Yeah.
the
You
resources,
have
but
to.
it's really tapping to their potential, and they step up, and it's amazing. It's really heartwarming to me to see how they step up. And we have, as an example, through our employment and education center, which is another extremely important part of our organization. We have vocational training, right?
Right.
Whether it's in
Right.
security guard training or culinary arts or property management, facilities maintenance. There's so many, and people go through these programs, and they're certificate bearing programs that are recognized by the local business leaders,
Sure.
because they know the caliber of the training that's received here at Father Joe's Villages, and we help people to then secure in employment, and with employment we know comes income and then security. But I mentioned that because at the graduating class, I love to be at the graduating class and hand out the certificates.
Right.
And these are individuals sometimes who I've seen earlier when they first have arrived
Mhm.
to our programs, and they seem downtrodden. They hardly even
Right.
make eye contact. And
Yeah.
then they're at graduation, and they're smiling, and they're looking at you, and they're sitting up tall, right? And I tell them how
Yep.
proud I am of them. I mean, they're so very thankful of us and grateful. And I tell them that they've done the work.
Yeah.
We provided those resources, but they've taken advantage of those resources. And
Mhm.
so as a result, they've done the work, and now they can feel good about the fact that they can go off and be an assistant chef, right?
You
In a
just augmented their self-awareness and their confidence level exponentially by providing the platform for them to make a decision to elevate themselves.
That's right.
And yeah, and I agree. I mean, when I say this, and sometimes I get in a little trouble for it, but I don't care. The government is not going to fix any of these problems. That they're a resource, but if you really want to fix the problems, especially at the community local level, like you're involved in and what we're involved in, it has to come directly from the community.
Right.
Not only is it most often a lot more efficient and cost saving, But like you said, it builds trust within the community, and if it's a handout from the government, who owns that hand? But if they get that resource from Deacon Vargas and Father Joe's and the people that work there and volunteer there, that's much more meaningful because like you said, that's the stuff that alters or potentially alters their life's path.
That's
And that's
correct.
yeah, and that's why at Perkins K-8, we have this program called Career Pathways, and so I'm blessed to have on my board Cristiano Amon, CEO of Qualcomm. I have another president of Qualcomm on my board. I have members from NASCO. I have members from Solar Turbines. I have the USS Midway, the food and beverage industry, the Grand Hyatt, those people. And so with their passion and their willingness to be engaged in the community, our Career Pathways program is for the sixth, seventh, and eighth graders where they're mature enough that they can go out from campus a couple of times a month, and then they come into these companies like Solar Turbines, and they learn about 3D printing, and they learn about stuff at Qualcomm's. They have a great program there called Techno Chicas, that's mostly geared towards Latino girls. And so we send, a couple of bus loads over to Qualcomm for a day or two, and they come out of there just enraptured with the opportunities that they were unaware of. And
Powerful.
and
That's
that,
really powerful.
it is powerful. And yeah, I mean, my long-term goal for the Perkins area, since we have this Career Pathways program where we're teaching skill sets and whatnot, and hopefully in 2023, we're going to place an actual enrichment center on campus. So we're going to drop a 40 by 20 uh, learning module right in the center of that campus. And we'll be bringing in subject matter experts on skill sets that are very, very marketable. I mean, employers in San Diego County are just dying for people with skills. And so we want to have that program start. And then alongside that, we're going to start working on potentially a charter school where we take the elementary school graduates and we just ship them right over to high school, and where they get some serious knowledge, where they can walk out the door with a diploma from high school and walk right into a job at Qualcomm or Solar Turbines or NASCO or BAE or any number of these outstanding industries in our county here. So that's kind of my long-term goal,
That's
and yeah, and I use your model as as a portion of what I envision or dream of. So thank you.
well, I appreciate that. I'm glad that it's working out for you. I mean, what you're doing in the programs, I know we've chatted before as well. I mean, I just am, I can't applaud you enough for what you're doing. You truly, it's making a difference. This program that you just mentioned in concert with Qualcomm, I mean, no doubt. I mean, this is the exposure that these students are getting is
Right,
going to be life changing for them. I wouldn't be surprised if that will be the reason they go into these fields, the fields of technology, right, and the fields of engineering, and
right.
then because of their exposure to Qualcomm and the people who they've come to know, sometimes at the senior levels, that will help them hopefully maybe get some internships as well. So a great thing.
Yeah. That's the commitment I ask for all those from all those companies. I say, let's not just start a program where we run these kids through an awareness program for 1, 2, 3 years or whatever it is. I said, with the right child, I would expect you to support them through high school, potentially college, if that's the path they choose, and at the very least, give them a job because
Mhm.
you know better than anyone in this room, if you're employed, gainfully employed, and you have passion for what it is that you're doing, you're not going to end up being homeless. It's very unlikely.
Mhm.
But if you're unable to get your reading comprehension rate above 80%, because any number of reasons at the second, third, and fourth grade, um, number one, you're going to fail. There's just no question. I mean, at Perkins, prior to the pandemic, the second, third, and fourth graders reading comprehension was at 85, 86%. Right now, it's hovering around 40%. So
Mm,
those children, if we don't elevate their reading comprehension, and but if you can't read, you can't learn, period,
right.
and full stop. So if we can't get those kids' reading comprehension rates up into the acceptable range, they are doomed. They will fail. You
That's right.
can call up Principal Fernando Hernandez, and he will tell you the way it is. And so we have 53 tutors now that are ready to start going back on campus and reinitiate our reading comprehension program. Unfortunately, for any number of political and health issues, they don't have enough teachers to even manage all the classrooms right now, and they can't get substitutes.
Mhm.
People just are uninterested in working, I guess, which is another story altogether. But yeah, I mean, your with the work you do and the work that we're doing, and hopefully other people in our community do, we can actually answer that question, that tough question that I asked you just a little while ago, by being on target, focused on these kids at the earliest possible age. I remember I asked Principal Hernandez one time, I said, is it too early for us to be doing something with kindergarten kids? He goes, no. In fact, prior to that, the
Mhm.
earlier you can get them, the better. So,
Yeah, we find that especially in our preschool for sure. As I mentioned, we have children from infancy. Especially with this new program that you mentioned, St. Margaret of Crotona Harbor, the women who have come to us thus far, by the way, in fact, the most recent was just a couple of weeks ago. Um, One of the women, it came time for her to give birth. She went off to the hospital for a couple of days, and then she came back to us.
yeah.
This our shelter basically is that baby's first home.
Yeah,
And but what a nice environment, right? I mean, it's of course it's
sure.
not it's still a shelter, don't get me wrong, but she has her own room with the
Yeah,
baby. She has all the support that she needs.
yeah.
She also has the support of older parents who are there, older mothers who are there, who
Mhm.
have experienced it, right? And just that mentoring, especially for a first-time mom, it's working out so well. I can't just tomorrow, by the way, Cristiano and Adriana are coming to tour St. Margaret of Crotona Harbor, so they're going to be with us, and I can't wait to show this. They will be touched beyond compare when they
I
actually see
am
it in
sure.
operation. So looking forward to that. But it's to your point, you have to catch them early, um, and and um, and help them. I mean, help them. These are kids that have, because of their experiences on the streets, uh, they they're delayed. They're
Yeah.
just delayed in many ways, and sometimes they come to us. They don't even make eye contact. So socially, there's so much. And yet, the
Mhm.
thing about children is that you apply the right resources and the right compassion, and they're so resilient.
Yeah,
Literally,
they
literally
really are.
within months, right? They're just bouncing. And we had someone who came back to us recently, and he came back to volunteer. He's an adult now, and he came back to volunteer. And originally, we didn't know he had been with us to begin with, and
Mhm.
yeah, it turned out that he, as a child, he had been with his parents. They had fallen onto hard times, and he had been here in our shelter. And this has happened on more than one occasion. What I'm sharing with you, but the he mentioned that what he will always remember about us, and he'd be grateful, is that really he never viewed it as being in a shelter. The way we approached it with
Mhm.
them, not only with him and his family, but the others, we try to normalize it to such an extent that he never viewed it in a shelter as a shelter. And he remembers specifically the Christmas times, the
Yeah.
holidays,
Oh, yeah.
because how we made it so very festive for them,
Right, right.
and to hear him say that is just so heartwarming. That's exactly what we try to do, right? We try to do just that. And now he's gone on, and he has a family of his own, and he's come back to us to volunteer and to donate and so forth. So because he appreciated the time that he spent with us. So yeah,
Oh,
that's
how
what
wonderful.
it's all about, Jeff.
Yeah, you know, and unfortunately, well, my wife and I, we, prior to the pandemic, every year we would, we go find a homeless shelter and then prepare a Christmas morning meal for all the people there, 20, 30, 40, 50 people, whatever. And, she and I would just do it ourselves. And the tone in a couple of those places, I'm sure they're well intended, but it just didn't feel welcoming at all. And the people that were being sheltered, there was that, like you said, that downtrodden kind of look in their eyes and lack of hope. To use that important word there. Just it was missing, and I if I had more time, I'd try and volunteer and get in there and kick some butt. But I'm I'm a little I'm a little busy here where I am now. But
I'm sure.
anyway, yeah. So, what are you gonna do this holiday for you and your family? I know you've got your own family to worry about in addition to all the thousands of people that you take care of here at Father
Well, we
Joe's.
will. Thank you for asking. We started our holidays with a big bang, actually. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. At Thanksgiving, so Thanksgiving we were all able to gather. And when I say all, I even had my 93-year-old dad come out from Orlando,
Oh my
and
gosh.
my sister who lives out there as well. So they came out, and they were especially here because in addition to all of us gathering for the Thanksgiving meal, I have a new grandson, and so this is my second, and so his brother is almost 3.5 years old at this point in time. But now the 5-month old, right after Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving day, that Sunday, I was able to baptize him. So I had the
Oh,
honor of
how fun.
baptizing him. And so we had all the family gathered and our friends gathered, and then a reception at home at our home. So it was just great to be able to do that and celebrate in that fashion. My daughter, who has our two grandchildren, lives up in San Jose, soon to be Seattle, because
Oh,
her husband, my son-in-law, who I love very dearly, we're very close, he and I, has been given a great opportunity up in the Seattle area. He's doing well, so
wow.
thank God for that.
Oh,
I just hate having him further away. But anyway, they'll come down for Christmas, and it'll just then be us. The rest of the family, my son from New York is not able to come out at Christmas time. He was out
yeah.
at Thanksgiving, and so it'll just be a smaller number of us, but still just spending time with one another at our home. And my wife loves prepares everything so beautifully. Any of the holidays,
Yeah,
it just adds
right.
magic the way she does it, and the meals and so forth. So anyway, so that's what we'll be doing. What about you?
Well, we've got, one son who just came back from Greenland. He's a satellite drone communication specialist, and he was, a contract worker for the Air Force at this very, very remote Air Force base in Greenland, and so he'll be with us, and then, another son is he's gonna be with his wife up in Northern California visiting her family, but so it's just gonna be, Cheryl and I and the one son. Small crowd, but like you, we had a much nicer, larger, event on Thanksgiving, which it's actually I that's my holiday. Christmas is all a big fake anyway. So, don't put your hand up to your ears, kids. But I'm much rather, share a Thanksgiving meal with family than worry about who got what presents. It's not where I'm at. I'm much more interested in the real stuff. So
Well, and whatever the holiday, whatever the time and the occasion, it's always good and always a blessing when you're able to gather with family. And
exactly. Yeah,
whatever that is, and that's been difficult during this pandemic time. So it's good that
very
we're able to get back to that. That's an important element. So and
absolutely.
have the best of holidays. With you at your end, and you and your family enjoy them.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Deacon Jim Vargas, what a astounding man. Who would have thought you'd be in this job? So, not you for
That is
sure. I
true.
think
That
you've
is
told
true.
me that story.
I like to. I still kind of refer to me as the poor kid from the South Bronx in New York. And you're right, Jeff. There's no way I would have thought this is where I would be.
No,
But God is
no,
awesome, and
yeah,
and it's incredible how He works in our lives.
very,
Absolutely.
very true. And you've obviously followed in the footsteps of the great Father Joe. in the most profound way. And I want to thank you so much for making time for me today. I know this is a really busy time for you around Father Joe's Village and all of the great work that you do. I also want to thank my sponsors, the San Diego Harbor Police Foundation, for their generosity to help support this program so that we can get the word out. And, you know, producer Sarah will send Natalie and you the link. So if you can publish the show throughout your network, it just, you know, you hate to be pedantic, but you know, it builds our numbers, and with the numbers, that means more people are aware about what you do and what my foundation does, which is that's how the game is played,
That's right.
and I'm fine with that. So
We'd be happy to do that. Absolutely.
great. Well, thank you again, Jim, and have a absolutely wonderful holiday. And
You too.
so we're
God
gonna sign off here.